interview the love interest of his best friend's wife and the guy trying to replace Ryan as a husband and me as his best mate. I've never done an interview before, but I've done a lot of things, like crazy things in Australia. You do understand you can't even get into preschool unless you take a person's life with your own bare hands. Twice.
Totally.
What the hell are you doing messing with my best buddy's wife?
Sir, I have no idea what's happening at all today.
I was expecting not to like him.
Oh, yeah.
But he is so nice.
I stumbled upon something that could be a real game changer, though maybe not. You might have already caught wind of this, but there are some fresh updates. Last week, there was that court session where the judge and all the involved parties discussed a protective order. Blake Lively's attorney and the PR teams were really focused on the need to safeguard third parties. It all boiled down to their celebrity friends, and Lively's attorney even admitted that in their request for discovery from Baldoni and Wayfair, they listed over 24 names of high-profile individuals. These are famous friends they've worked with and talked to, and they believe these folks might have insights into everything that went down. Blake's team is understandably worried that involving these people could jeopardize their careers, which is why they're pushing for this protective order. But that's not the main point of this video. The latest buzz, courtesy of the Daily Mail, is that Hugh Jackman is getting pulled into this whole situation. Honestly, that shouldn't come as a shock to anyone since he was part of the cross-promotion for Deadpool and Wolverine, along with It Ends With Us. He even interviewed Brandon, who played Atlas in the film, which was a bit awkward. If you've seen the movie, you know they misrepresent Atlas as the love interest, but in reality he and Blake were just friends. There was no romantic connection at all. They didn't share any intimate moments, not even a kiss. The most they did was hug. It wasn't even a love triangle. He was just an old boyfriend from the past. When she was in high school, he played a significant role in her life, but he wasn't her main love interest. That title went to Justin Baldoni. I remember watching the promotional film and thinking, why are they calling him the love interest? This is so strange. Then Hugh made an appearance on the red carpet, helping to promote the film, It Ends With Us. Recently, there's been a new article suggesting that Hugh might be deposed and could have to provide some discovery documents, which I'll touch on shortly. As I navigate through these investigations, I always remind myself to keep my perspective broad. I want to avoid getting too caught up in conspiracies or letting bias cloud my judgment. It's important not to jump to conclusions about Justin's innocence without considering all the facts. I came across the amended complaint, the first one Justin filed against Blake right after she filed against him. It's striking how different it is from the second complaint. They removed a lot of information, likely for a reason. However, I found a section that filled in some gaps for me that I hadn't noticed before. It mentioned threats they claimed were made against them. It seems that shortly after the film's release, their publicist at the time, Stephanie Jones, who had essentially abandoned them, was losing clients left and right. Seems like a lot of this text is generated by AI. So here's the scoop. All these big-name clients like Chris Hemsworth and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson were part of the mix. When she started losing these high-profile clients, she suddenly jumped back into the Wayfair situation, creating quite a stir. She ended up clashing with Jen Abel, who was the account contact for Stephanie's company. To break it down, Jen worked for Stephanie under Jones Works, and she was the publicist representing Wayfair for them. Now, Jen was on her way out of the company, and when Stephanie found out, she got really upset. She started throwing around some wild accusations against Jen and handed over all her grievances to Blake because she was furious with both Jen and Justin. That's their side of the story. There's a part that mentions how Wayfair decided to cut ties with Stephanie. It states that for Wayfair and Dawn, the choice was clear. Once Jen left Jones Works, Wayfair was done too. This wasn't about Jen trying to poach Wayfair or Dawn, nor was it part of some elaborate scheme to cut out Jones Works. Jen was a trusted and dedicated team member, and wherever she went, Wayfair and Dawn would follow. On the flip side, Stephanie was described as a walking disaster, known for her self-absorption, disloyalty, and insubordination, which had become quite a headache. Instead of handling the end of their relationship with grace, she started threatening to sue and demanding outrageous payments for work that hadn't even been completed, insisting she had done a fantastic job. But by that point, Wayfair and Dawn had already made up their minds to part ways with Jones Works, and their decision was final. So when they decided to move on from Stephanie, she threatened to take legal action, basically saying they were in trouble. It seems like there's been a serious breach of contract here. Stephanie is really upset about the fact that they brought in Melissa Nathan for Crisis PR. She sees Melissa as a rival since they're both at different agencies, and Stephanie believes she can handle Crisis PR just as well. So she's questioning why Wayfair would look outside of Jones' works when they could have relied on them. This feeling of betrayal from Wayfair is what kicked everything off. She's been sending them letters trying to get them to reaffirm their commitment to her. On August 21st, Stephanie wrote to them saying, "Justin, Wayfair, you, Tara, and the team are extremely important to us. I got your text a little over an hour ago, but I can't make calls from my current location. I apologize for that. Matthew Mitchell, one of our senior VPs whom you've mentioned as one of your day-to-day executives on your account, said he just spoke with you and that nothing was urgent. It was about the announcement for the new book adaptation we're working on, which is supposed to follow the heels of the U. So it seems there might be plans for a sequel. However, your email below is not accurate. As you know, I've been heavily involved in strategy planning, account management, and high-level PR and media communications, including crisis management, until you asked me to stop communicating on behalf of Justin and Wayfair on August 9th. You wanted only Jennifer, Matthew, and the team to handle it. I've been on set during shoots and have had numerous calls weekly with both my team and yours, along with many discussions with Justin, especially regarding Blake, often late at night around 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. New York time. My commitment to this has spanned not just the past 8 years, but especially the last 4 since you came on board. This journey has never been about one person. It's truly been a team effort. I've had the full support of a dedicated crew at Jones Works, which includes a senior vice president, 2 senior publicists, several account executives, and an account coordinator, all working tirelessly for Justin and Wayfair. On August 9th, you mentioned that you wanted only Jennifer A.L., Matthew Mitchell, and their team to communicate on behalf of Justin and Wayfair. However, I understand that Blank was brought on and started communicating with teams just 4 days later, on August 13th, 2024. This shows that I wouldn't have been stepping in mid-trial. I'm assuming they're referring to Melissa Nathan here. I've spoken to Blank and even tried to reach out to Blank yesterday about a magazine cover for Justin that I've been working on for the past year. As I mentioned below, I've made several attempts to contact you via email and phone, but I haven't heard back. We have an exclusive contract with you that runs through May of 2025, and you've engaged a crisis PR firm to handle all crisis-related matters. If you'd like us to assist with that now, we absolutely can and will. Just let me know. Rest assured, our team at Jones Works is more than capable of managing everything as we always have without missing a beat. It seems like she was trying to present herself as caring, but by this point they were upset with her. She claimed we could have handled this. It's what we do. Crisis PR is our specialty. And she was really frustrated about Melissa. So the main point of the first complaint is that Stephanie could provide Jen A.L.'s text messages to the New York Times. Blake seems to have made a move to undermine Jennifer A.L.'s business after she left him and took Wayfair with her. It looks like he was trying to take Justin down too, making it a sort of 2-for-1 deal. I can't say for sure if that's how it all went down, but that's the vibe I got from the first amended complaint. There's another section in that same complaint where they mention discussions with the talent agency representing Ryan, Blake, and Justin. Apparently, the executives at this agency, which happens to be run by Stephanie Jones's husband, admitted that no one really challenges Lively and Reynolds. Then on August 13th, 20124, Abel and Heath had another call with the talent agency executives. During this conversation, one of the executives told Heath that they had reached out to Lively and Reynolds about the wave of negative publicity they had been facing recently. Heath made it clear that Wayfair, Boney, and Heath had nothing to do with that negative press. However, the executives informed him that Lively and Reynolds insisted that Wayfair issue a statement taking responsibility for the issues that arose during filming. They even threatened to go after Wayfair in the press if they didn't comply. The executives explained to Heath and Abel that Lively and Reynolds had dictated a statement that Wayfair was required to release, labeling the production as "Ends With Us, a Troubled One," and forcing Wayfair to take accountability for the production's problems. Essentially, Wayfair, along with Boney and Heath, would need to acknowledge their mistakes and accept all the negativity directed at Reynolds and Lively. Abel and Heath then asked the executives to clarify what exactly Wayfair, Boney, and Heath were supposed to do next. It seems that Lively and Reynolds were feeling pretty frustrated with how social media had turned against them. The executive even admitted that they kind of brought the backlash upon themselves, but at that point they were beyond reasoning. He pointed out that making constant threats was just part of Lively and Reynolds' usual playbook, and their demands didn't really reflect reality. It was more about finding someone else to blame for their social media crises. They wanted Wayfair to take the heat for the backlash they were facing, which wasn't really about the sexual harassment allegations but rather about the negative attention they were getting online. They just wanted it all to stop. That's when they claimed to start working with Stephanie Jones after several months. But when she said no, suddenly the lawsuit appeared. They made it clear to Sony that they had no involvement with any of the articles that were being published, and Sony allegedly acknowledged that they understood the situation. It was clear that there was no reasoning with Blake and Ryan. What stood out to me was their pattern of behavior. They seem to have this modus operandi where, whenever they find themselves in a tough spot, they try to shift the blame onto someone else for their own decisions and use threats to get people to comply. I even did a little digging and found an article from Gawker dating back to 2014. It mentioned that during that time, Blake had a blog post where she praised and drew inspiration from women of the antebellum period, specifically the wives of slave owners. It's quite a controversial source of inspiration to say the least. Detect AI-generated content and give it a human touch with our AI content detector. Just paste your text and receive accurate, natural-sounding results in seconds. Here's the text we're looking at. It all started with a blog post about the Southern antebellum era, where the author was enthusiastically celebrating the remarkable women of that time. However, this praise didn't sit well with many, as several outlets pointed out that she was essentially glorifying individuals who were slave owners. This sparked quite a controversy, and ultimately her decision to highlight such figures contributed to her site's downfall. Then, Gawker jumped into the fray with an article about her blog post, titled Blake Lively's Fall Fashion Inspiration is Slave Owners. A few days later, they followed up with another piece stating that Blake Lively's lawyer requested the removal of their post. The note read, "We love hearing from our readers even when they have complaints." It went on to explain that they received a letter from Lively's attorney, demanding the removal of the previous article. The letter claimed that Gawker had portrayed her in a false and defamatory manner. The law firm representing Lively and her company, Preserve LLC, expressed their concerns about the article titled, Blake Lively's Fall Fashion Inspiration is Slave Owners, stating that it misrepresented both Lively and Preserve. They argued that the piece was not only misleading but also a deliberate attack on Lively's character and her business. Furthermore, they accused Gawker of irresponsible reporting that could mislead consumers about Preserve's products and services, claiming that the article twisted the narrative to unfairly represent the brand. The way Gawker has acted has already led to significant financial and reputational damage for us. We insist that you remove any access to the article mentioned above, stop any further publication related to it, and take steps to prevent any additional harm to our clients caused by these clearly false and defamatory articles. We reserve all rights, including the option to take legal action against Gawker Media and its affiliates for any reputational harm or other injuries resulting from the statements made in that article. This situation is quite similar to the letter she sent to Mr. Baldoni regarding the hostility in the workplace. We are prepared to pursue legal action unless you comply with our demands. Gawker has been known to shut down due to lawsuits, and while I'm not a fan of Gawker in this instance, they were actually correct. She was called out by multiple outlets for her actions. In 2015, when she closed her website, she openly acknowledged that she had made mistakes and could have handled things differently. The conflict with Gawker dragged on for months, with her trying to blame them for accurately reporting that she drew inspiration from slave owners for her fall fashion line. This was essentially what she was implying. In the same article, she faced accusations of plagiarism, racism, and for romanticizing the lives of slave owners and the Southern belle aesthetic. It's worth noting that this is the same woman who chose to host an event on a plantation, which was entirely her decision. Let's take a moment to honor the women of the Civil War era who owned slaves, acknowledging that it was their choice to engage in that part of history. Now, shifting gears a bit, there's this situation where someone is pointing fingers at Gawker for supposedly ruining her website. The site had been running for quite some time, and after just one day of an article being published, she was already claiming that Gawker was causing reputational damage, false light, and injury to her business. It makes me curious about how often she sends out letters like this when things go south for her. If she's been using these kinds of tactics before, it could tie into what Justin's lawsuit is suggesting, that they resort to threats to get their way. It feels like a pattern where she's ready to sue Gawker for a choice she made herself. Just like the executive at the Talon agency mentioned, they seem to have a habit of deflecting blame onto others to escape tough situations. It's frustrating because they don't seem to care about reasoning. They just want someone else to take the heat. She has a history of making threats. It raises questions about her sense of entitlement. She acts as if she can do whatever she pleases without facing any consequences. And when she intimidates someone and they don't comply, she feels compelled to follow through on her threats. In Justin's case, he stood his ground and she went ahead with her threats. It makes me wonder how many others she's blamed for various issues and threatened to silence. With the kind of wealth and influence they wield, the number of people they've likely intimidated could be staggering. The complaint basically states that the talent agency was aware that Blake and Ryan were beyond reason and indifferent to the sexual harassment claims. In fact, it seems that the harassment issue was secondary to their concern about the backlash they were facing. Even before she was aware of any alleged smear campaign, she had already convinced herself that there was one. She believed that the negative press she was receiving was due to retaliation from Justin and Jamie. Apparently, during a 17-point agreement with them, one of the stipulations was about retaliation, where she insisted they wouldn't retaliate against her. The complaint highlights that Justin and Jamie felt pressured to comply with her demands because every time they said no, she would accuse them of retaliating, which led to threats of a lawsuit. This created a situation where they felt they had no choice but to give in to her requests, regardless of whether her claims of retaliation were justified. It's worth noting that narcissists often tend to be overly litigious and frequently shift blame onto others. Now, with Hugh Jackman potentially involved, an article mentions that his legal team intends to depose him before the trial. They want to fully understand Reynolds' behavior during the filming of It Ends With Us. If this case goes to trial, there's no doubt he will have to testify. Baldwin's legal team is really digging deep to uncover the full extent of Ryan's behavior during the filming of It Ends With Us. As Ryan's close friend who was often around him and Blake during that time, his deposition is going to be super important. They're determined to leave no stone unturned. Sources indicate that Jackman played a role in promoting It Ends With Us, and Reynolds seemed to throw in a few not-so-subtle jabs at Boney in Deadpool and Wolverine. It's hard to believe Hugh wasn't aware of this. Not only that, but Hugh also helped promote It Ends With Us, in a similar way to how Taylor did when they teamed up for the cross-promotion with Deadpool. The timing of the premieres was definitely intentional. Jackman showed his support for It Ends With Us by attending the New York premiere alongside Ryan Reynolds. They reached out to him for a comment, but he chose to stay silent. Given that Hugh was on set during the nice pool scenes and also promoted It Ends With Us, it's pretty odd when you think about it. The jokes made during those promotions felt really out of touch, especially considering the film deals with domestic violence. Hugh joked about killing the love interest of his best friend's wife, while Ryan chimed in about how great Brandon's butt looks. It's a bizarre promo. So it seems like Hugh might have to step up and say something too. This ties back to yesterday's video where we discussed how Ryan is trying to distance himself from this situation. But honestly, there's no way he can escape it now, especially with Blake juggling all these projects. Ryan's career is still on the move, but we won't really grasp the full impact of it until later. Right now, what we're seeing is mostly from before the lawsuit. We need to consider what things will look like a year from now. Will he still be making films? Will Blake land new roles? That's where the real questions will start to emerge. Is Blake going to be cast in new movies? She has another simple favor coming out and is narrating a National Geographic piece on penguins. But aside from that, what else is in the pipeline? Most of what we see now is from before the lawsuit, so the real effect on her brand will only become clear over time, just like with Ryan. He can't completely distance himself from this situation, no matter how much he might want to. Now Hugh and Taylor are set to be deposed, which is why Ryan and Blake are anxious about involving third parties. They don't want their friends dragged into this mess, even though they've already pulled them in. Hugh might just be a bystander, you know? He might not have any real knowledge of what's going on, or he could be more involved than we think. The same goes for Taylor. Honestly, if I were friends with Blake and Ryan right now, I'd be hesitant to stay close. Anyone they interact with could end up being part of the depositions. They could even call in Paul Feig from A Simple Favor, or Anna Kendrick if they really wanted to. What do you think about this whole litigation threat? It seems like they're using their history of threatening others to avoid taking responsibility for their own mistakes and to manage the backlash they've rightfully faced. It's quite a situation, isn't it? Hey everyone. Just sharing my thoughts here, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, guys.